Welcome back, adventurers and friends, to Adventures Inward Let's Talk series. For those who are here for the first time, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder to hit that like button and subscribe. It's free. Be sure to click on the notification bell if you would like to know when I post new videos. Today, we will be talking about defense mechanisms, what they are, and how they help us cope along our way. So get comfy cozy, open your heart, open your mind, and let's get into it. What are defense mechanisms? Well, they are behaviors that people use to separate themselves from unpleasant events, actions, or thoughts. Let's get into the technical part of this, so you have a foundation of understanding the working components. Then we will deep dive into the ways they help us cope. The idea of defense mechanisms comes from psychoanalytical theories, a psychological perspective of personality that sees personality as the interaction between three components: id, ego, and superego. These psychological strategies may help people put distance between themselves and threats or unwanted feelings, such as guilt or shame. It was first proposed by Sigmund Freud. This theory has evolved over time and contends that behaviors, like defense mechanisms, are not under a person's conscious control. In fact, most people do them without even realizing it. According to these theories, defense mechanisms are a natural part of psychological development. Identifying which type you, your loved ones, or even your coworkers use may help you in future conversations and encounters. So, let's break it down. How do defense mechanisms work? Well, defense mechanisms are ways you react to situations that bring up negative emotions. According to psychoanalytic theory, when you experience a stressor, the subconscious will first monitor the situation to see if it might harm you. If the subconscious believes the situation might lead to emotional harm, it may react with a defense mechanism to protect you. Usually, you are unaware of the defense mechanism, though the behavior may appear odd to others around you. Many researchers place defense mechanisms on a continuum, with more mature defenses improving cognitive processes and less mature ones causing harm. In the long term, mature defense mechanisms may not be particularly detrimental to your emotional or mental health. Using more mature mechanisms may help you face the anxieties and situations that might normally cause stress and emotional duress. Other defense mechanisms, however, are not as mature and helpful. Prolonged use of these defenses can lead to lingering problems. In fact, they may prevent you from ever facing emotional issues or anxieties because they block you from seeing the root cause. Some signs that defense mechanisms are getting in the way of your everyday life and mental health may include feeling sad or depressed, having difficulty getting out of bed, avoiding usual daily activities, things, or people that once made you happy, having difficulty forming or maintaining healthy relationships, or communication problems that hinder your professional or personal life. Here are some of the top most common defense mechanisms. Dozens of different defense mechanisms have been identified. Some are used more commonly than others. But let's go over some of the few common defense ones. First one is denial. Denial is one of the most common defense mechanisms. It occurs when you refuse to accept reality or facts. People in denial may block external events or circumstances from the mind so that they don't have to deal with the emotional impact. In other words, they avoid painful feelings or events. This defense mechanism is one of the most widely known. The phrase, "they're in denial," is commonly understood to mean a person is avoiding reality, despite what may be obvious to people around them. Second, repression. Unsavory thoughts, painful memories, or irrational beliefs can upset you. Instead of facing those thoughts, people may unconsciously choose to hide them in hopes of forgetting them entirely. That does not mean, however, that the memories disappear entirely. They may influence behaviors, and they may impact future relationships. You just may not realize the impact this defense mechanism is having. Third, projection. Some thoughts or feelings you have about another person may make you uncomfortable. When people project those feelings, they misattribute them to the other person. For example, you may dislike your new coworker, but instead of accepting that, you choose to tell yourself that they dislike you. You start to interpret their words and actions towards you in the worst possible way, even though they don't actually dislike you. 4. Displacement. You direct strong emotions and frustrations towards a person or object that doesn't feel threatening. This allows you to satisfy an impulse to react, but you don't risk significant consequences. A good example of this defense mechanism is getting angry at your child or spouse because you had a bad day at work. Neither of these people is the target of your strong emotions, but your subconscious may believe reacting to them is likely less problematic than reacting to your boss. 5. Regression. Some people who feel threatened or anxious may unconsciously escape to an earlier stage of development. This type of defense mechanism may be most obvious in young children. If they experience trauma or loss, they may suddenly act as if they're younger again. They may even begin wetting the bed or sucking their thumb as a form of regression. Adults can regress too. Adults who are struggling to cope with events or behaviors may return to sleeping with a cherished stuffed animal, overeat foods they find comforting, or begin chain smoking or chewing on pencils or pens. They may also avoid everyday activities because they feel overwhelmed. 6. Rationalization. Some people may attempt to explain undesirable behaviors with their own set of facts. This allows you to feel comfortable with the choices you have made, even if you know on another level it's not right. For example, someone who didn't get a promotion at work might say they didn't want the promotion anyways. 7. Sublimation. This type of defense mechanism is considered a mature, positive strategy. That's because people who rely on it choose to redirect strong emotions or feelings into an object or activity that is appropriate and safe. An example of this: instead of lashing out at your coworkers during a stressful shift, you choose to channel your frustration into a kickboxing class. You could also funnel or redirect the feelings into music, art, or sports. 8. Reaction formation. People who use this defense mechanism recognize how they feel, but they choose to behave in the opposite manner of their instincts. A person who reacts this way, for example, may feel they should not express negative emotions, such as anger or frustration. They choose to instead react in an overly positive way. 9. Compartmentalization. Separating your life into independent sectors may feel like a way to protect many elements of it. For example, when you choose to not discuss personal life issues at work, you block off or compartmentalize the elements of your life. This allows you to carry on without facing the anxieties or challenges while you are in that setting or mindset. 10. Intellectualization. When you are hit with a challenging situation, you may choose to remove all emotion from your responses and instead focus on quantitative facts. You may see this strategy in use when a person spends their days creating spreadsheets of job opportunities and leads after they are let go from a job. So, what are some of the treatments for unhealthy defense mechanisms? Let's look at this. Defense mechanisms can sometimes be viewed as a type of self-deception. You might be using them to hide emotional responses that you don't want to deal with from yourself. However, it's done mostly on an unconscious level. You are not always aware of the way your mind or ego will respond. That doesn't mean, however, that you can't modify or change the behaviors. Indeed, you can transform unhealthy defense mechanisms into ones that are more sustainable. Let's look at some of these techniques. First one is find accountability. Friends and family members can help you recognize defense mechanisms you may be using. By drawing attention to the self-deception, they can help you identify the moment you unconsciously use self-deception. That allows you to then decide in the conscious state what you really want to do. Second, learn coping strategies. Therapy with a mental health expert, such as a psychotherapist, psychologist, or psychoanalyst, may help you recognize the defense mechanisms you use most often. They can then help you learn active responses to make choices on a more mindful level. So here are my final thoughts on this. Defense mechanisms are natural. They are often used without any long-term complications or issues. However, some people do develop emotional difficulties if they continue to use these mechanisms without coping with the underlying threat or anxiety. Treatment focuses on helping you address issues from a mindful place, not an unconscious one. Remember to be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace and always, always love yourself. Thank you for joining me.